Hello, and thanks again for joining our podcast series, A Day in the Life of an Ethical Hacker. Hosted by Synack's Tice Harrison, this series deep dives into the minds of our Synack Red Team members. They tell us why they chose this line of work, what they do when they're not finding vulnerabilities, and give us a glimpse into their everyday lives. Today's interview is with Adam Logue, security researcher, bug bounty hunter, and penetration tester from Grand Rapids, Michigan. He is a car enthusiast and a USCCA certified firearms instructor. Adam has been working with Synack for just over 3 years. Before we get started, for those new listeners not familiar with Synack, founded in 2013 by former NSA security experts Jay Kaplan and Dr. Mark Kerr, Synack is the most trusted crowdsourced security platform delivering comprehensive and continuous penetration testing. Synack combines the world's most skilled and trusted ethical hackers with AI-enabled technology to create a scalable, effective security solution. Headquartered in Silicon Valley with regional offices around the world, Synack protects leading global banks, federal agencies, DoD classified assets, and close to $1 trillion in Fortune 500 revenue. We hope you enjoy this interview. Now, once again, over to you, Tice.
Thanks, Michelle, and hi to all of our listeners today. Welcome to the series, Adam.
Thank you very much.
Really looking forward to this one. We had a brief chat beforehand, but yeah, I think it would be really interesting for some of our new listeners to get to know you a little bit better before we dive into the more technical areas of what you do with Synack. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, where you studied, and your day job activities?
Sure. So actually, I sort of got back into hacking around 2010. I've always really enjoyed it. And the thought of it was, like ever since I was about 6, I was like, I want to be a hacker when I grow up. And that sort of came around when one night my dad played the movie Sneakers for us. I think it came out in like 1992. In the first scene, Robert Redford, he goes into a bank and there's some guys in the back of a van. He's got an earpiece and they're sort of guiding him through, like pretending to be someone else to withdraw money from this bank. And after he gets all the money, he walks up the stairs to a bunch of executives sitting around a desk and dumps the money on the table and goes, "Here's everything wrong with your bank." And ever since then, I was like, this is what I want to do. So I figured out when I was in 6th grade that there was a university nearby me called Ferris State University that was starting a program that was doing information assurance, I guess was the buzzword back then. And it was all about, finding the correct buzzwords to go after. So I want to say closer to the time that I graduated high school, it was, I think cyber is what it started to actually go towards. And pretty much I got waitlisted on, their program because my GPA wasn't the greatest, because my non-hacking classes or computer classes in high school actually were, not the greatest grades. So I went to community college actually, and I'm actually quite glad that I did. A lot of the classes I took in community college were very hands-on, and I got a degree in information security from my community college. It was a brand new degree program because before then they just had the regular comp sci programs. And then after that, I transferred to Ferris and finished up my bachelor's in information security and intelligence. But I guess most of the actual hands-on technical classes weren't super technical in college. So really what got me started was YouTube and, the internet. So growing up, I had an iPod Touch, and it was like one of the first generation ones before the App Store really came out. So around the 2010, 2011 time, I Googled how to put games on an iPod Touch, and they're talking about jailbreaking iPhones and iPod Touches. And I followed along. I didn't quite know what I was doing, but I, managed to jailbreak mine. And when you jailbreak an iPod Touch, it actually puts a BSD subsystem on there, very similar to Linux. And so there are a lot of the same commands, and I had to learn how to SSH into it and, connect to it remotely. And so basically the start of my Linux and, Unix syntax came sort of from there. After I started getting into that more, I started learning some of the more technical back-end, aspects of the iPhone and iPod Touch. And started watching some YouTube videos when I wanted to learn how to crack Wi-Fi passwords, because back then you didn't have Wi-Fi everywhere like you do now. And when there was Wi-Fi, it was always password protected. So the first time I tried it, it was way over my head, and I sort of gave up for like a month or so. But then I was like, you know what? I should be capable of doing this. So I downloaded Backtrack Linux at the time. Now it's called Kali Linux. It's the pen testing distribution that's probably the most popular, I guess.
Sure.
And I used backtracking at that point. I didn't really know how to do a whole lot other than navigate through the terminal based on my limited at the time Linux syntax and commands that I could do. But I was able to follow along on some videos made by a individual named Got Milk. And at the time, I didn't necessarily understand everything I was doing. I just had the general idea of, oh, if I follow along with these things, type this out, then it'll actually gain the actual output that I want. And I was able to crack a WEP wireless network. And I was so proud of myself. I set up my own with my Netgear WRT54G, the blue routers with bunny ears on them. And so I set up one of those in my house because my dad got one from a garage sale for like $5 or something. And I was able to crack that Wi-Fi password. And then I changed it to WPA2, and I was able to crack that. And then I actually started to watch some of his other videos, and I was like, oh, here's some videos on how to actually hack in Windows XP. And then I started to keep up from there. So going into college, I already had more of a technical like aspect than a lot of the people there did. And by the time I actually got into the four-year college, Ferris, I was actually already doing like capture the flag competitions from like my local security conference, GERCON. That's out of Grand Rapids every year. And so from like 2013, I placed like third place in that competition. 2014, I placed first in that competition.
Wow,
So
nice.
That sort of really helped me along with a lot of Googling during those. And I'm one of those people that actually learns by doing. So anytime there's any challenges or anything like that, it's always a great learning opportunity. But really, after going to college, I didn't learn a whole lot until I actually got a job working for a healthcare company on their red team. So I was mostly testing like web applications, and that really helped with like bug bounty hunting, I found out. So going from the network penetration testing side of like learning capture the flag stuff and trying to actually get into workstations and servers to now the web application aspect of it, like how can someone compromise a website or show effective attacks against web applications. That was sort of a transition shift where I had to sort of learn a whole new set of tools, and really getting the bug bounties right around that time was where that whole thing started. And I was actually very lucky that that job paid for some really expensive SANS training for me. So I got to take like SANS SEC 660 and SEC 760. So those were some advanced exploit development classes, and that sort of got me into the reverse engineering side of things. So following that, I got a job for another company. It was a consulting firm, and that company sort of allowed me to practice the network penetration testing again, but this time it was for multiple different clients every week instead of my own company where I had to find the actual issues and fix them. So during the consulting for them, I'm able to basically say, "Oh, it's your problem now," after the task and drop the report.
Yeah.
But
instead of having to do the actual patch yourself, right?
Exactly. I don't have to chase anyone down for that. But that sort of is nice because like I can get a wide variety of seeing how different companies have their own security posture set up, and sort of go from there. So any kind of opportunities I get there are great. I know that one of the niche areas I got into shortly after that was vehicle hacking, and that's sort of a very niche area as well. So it started out at that security conference GERCON. Again, we're sort of close to Detroit, so there's a lot of car enthusiasts, and I'm definitely a car enthusiast.
You are one of them as well, right?
Yep.
Hard
So,
not to be from Michigan.
right. So I figured, oh, let's try to merge vehicles and hacking. So I sat down with them. I'm like, can you give me a quick, overview of how to do this? And they're like, sure. So they gave me a quick crash course on like some simple tools and how to actually see some um, CAN bus packets and watch those go over the bus. And pretty much I was able to then sort of start to spoof, different um, CAN packets and send, like different, um, I guess I'm trying to not necessarily go down a rabbit hole here, but I was able to, spoof the speedometer to make the speedometer show it's, going at different speed, or I was able to, turn on or off like the anti-lock brake system or lock or unlock the doors, that kind of thing. So once you start to figure out how the car works, you can start to put these things together, and effectively you're working with a cyber weapon. Because a lot of these vehicles are connected via 4G LTE, or they've got
Exactly, yeah.
Bluetooth. So that's sort of one of those niche areas that I started exploring to, and that got me down the hardware route as well. So one of my coworkers, who's also an SRT, he was able to show me a lot of cool hardware hacking things, and I've had a couple of opportunities to really, practice those. So it's been sort of a wild ride.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. It sounds like you've been sort of constantly updating your tools and constantly learning on the job as well, and learning by doing, right?
For sure.
So how did you actually come across Synack? How did you join the Synack platform?
So it's actually kind of funny. I was looking on another platform, and I signed up for that, and I found that like there was a post that someone made on a website that showed me sort of like not really a walkthrough, but like a write up of a generic thing they did for Synack, and I was like, that looks interesting. So I went to the site to sign up. I found that, oh, they actually vet everyone, and you have to interview and actually show your skill set. So I was like, this looks like something I could do, and I definitely signed up and did my best to get on the platform as soon as I could start hacking.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that you said one of your colleagues also works at Synack. Did you know that before you started working at the same company, or?
I actually got him on the platform for one of the Synack events because I knew he was a great hardware hacker, and I knew there was a hardware target coming up. So I was like, hey, we need to get him on the platform. So he did a great job on it.
And did you both share similar experiences in terms of the onboarding process? How did you find the onboarding process?
So at the time when I put him or got him on the platform, it was very similar to mine. A lot of it was a interview type of thing, and his was face to face. His was face to face because we were both in San Francisco at the time, working on another client engagement. But mine was over Skype, and this was before the Point 3 system got implemented. So there was not as much technical stuff for us to do, but we had to really talk the talk, and then we had a technical and other overview written portion that we had to go through as well. So I think it's a lot different now, but I haven't quite done that. So I can't really speak on how the new technical system is set up.
Current process, yeah. And did you enjoy the onboarding process at the time? I guess it's quite nice to sort of meet people from the company you're going to be doing work with.
Yeah. So definitely at the time, the onboarding process was a lot. It was a lot nicer that I could actually like interact with someone, and I definitely felt that at the time they did a very good job of vetting people. So in my opinion, the onboarding process was definitely great. It was sort of early on in Synack, so there weren't very many researchers. I think at the time I was like one of only a couple hundred back in 2017. So that was kind of nice to know that like I was part of a group of very talented individuals.
A very sort of niche community, I'm guessing. And over time, the community's grown a lot bigger than it was back in 2017. And have you seen a change in the community? Have you seen? I know that we spoke very briefly beforehand about how much you enjoy interacting with others in the community. Has that been something which motivates you and keeps you in touch with everyone on the platform?
Yeah, I know that I guess recently it's been a lot closer with, some of the other SRT. Now we were able to actually talk to each other, and there's a lot of knowledge transfer between other SRT. And it used to be that it was only during like the Hacker House hangouts and meetups that we really got to do that with each other. So it's nice to be able to do that now, like online, and sometimes we can help each other out when we're sort of stuck.
And have you done any of the Hacker Hangouts? Have you been involved in any of those meetups?
Yeah, so I went to a couple. Last year I got to go to one in Costa Rica, and then there was one in Denver. I think before that I went to one in Washington, D.C. So there have been quite a few that I've actually been able to attend. So I've been really excited about that. I didn't quite get to go to the Austin one this time around. It's one of those times where I wasn't quite as active in the platform, and conveniently enough, my sister was getting married, so that happened to be at the same time frame, so I wouldn't have been able to make that one anyway. But I'm still, hopeful for being able to attend the next one.
And you're back at it now. You're back
Yeah.
at it. No weddings on the horizon.
Nope.
You can focus on it. And so, touching on that point, you have obviously your day job, your separate personal life, and your work with Synack. How do you divide your day? I believe you're a remote worker for your current company. So how do you divide your day and your time to make sure that you're active on the platform, and also, having a social life and doing your day job successfully?
So with my day job, a lot of times if I'm having a really light week, I can sometimes multitask and do both, where I'll like start, an automated scan or something on one, or like on the platform, and then work on something for my day job, or then vice versa. If there's something with my day job where there's not a whole lot of stuff for me to do other than wait, instead of doing that, I'm sort of maximizing my efficiency and time by working on something on the platform. So there's certain times when I'm much busier with my day job, and that sort of comes first. So I really focus on that. But then, after I finish up working for the day, I might jump on the platform at night if I've got nothing else going on, and sort of see if there's something I can find.
So when you jump onto the platform, is there a specific type of vulnerability that you like to go for, that you look to approach in a certain way? Do you look for the hardest SQLi, or do you first go for easy money? What's your preference?
So it depends on the target. A lot of times I'll look to see like, who the target is first, and sort of imagine like some possible attack scenarios based on the scope of the engagement. But a lot of times I do go after, SQLi and remote code execution vulnerabilities. And I've got a lot of automated scripts I've written to actually look for specific vulnerable endpoints that I know have, you know, an exploit that I've written for them, or have a public available exploit. And I'll sort of attack those first. But I also will definitely poke at that manually and see if I can find any low-hanging fruit, of course. And then I sort of dive deeper to see if there's any underlying issues that I can expose that I can actually exploit.
So on that, do you, in terms of which tools you use, do you have a favorite tool to use? Have you built up this tool set over time, or do you write your own tools? And what do you tend to use for which?
So I, like the majority of other bug bounty hunters, use Burp Suite Professional for actually working with, bug bounties. Is probably the biggest, most dynamic tool. A lot of the other tools are going to be either ones I've written in Python, or other ones like SQL Map, or trying to think, even Metasploit. Sometimes if someone's written like a Metasploit module for something, it makes it pretty easy to do that. But a lot of times, especially with the platform, there's always one-off targets where we actually have to manually exploit them, where it's not going to work right out of the box with an exploit. So you have to either go back and modify a Metasploit payload manually and try to attack it that way, or actually, write something yourself in Python to trigger it, or find someone else's GitHub POC to try to fit and make work with it.
and just finding a way to get it done, right? And staying creative. And I guess as you learn on the job and you really like hands-on approach, that probably suits you quite well.
Yeah, for sure.
And so what type of assessments do you take part in? Is it web, host, or mobile?
So host is probably my favorite. I also I do almost all of them. The only one I don't really do is source code. And I actually lied. I think hardware is actually my favorite, but I think in my time at Synack, I've only had a couple of hardware engagements to work with. I believe that the host ones, they pay out typically a little bit more just based on the types of vulnerabilities accepted. But a lot of times the web application ones, those, if you find several web vulnerabilities, the payouts definitely do stack up.
And so with that in mind, is payouts the thing that motivates you most? Or, I know that you're also very keen on moving up the levels, I believe. Which level are you at the moment?
I'm level 4 currently.
You're level 4. So you've obviously been doing it for quite a while now. Are you still motivated by moving up the levels, or is it the finance side of it, the payouts that motivates you most? I'm guessing you're still wanting to move up to level 5.
Yes, of course. I'm actually pretty close to level 5. I don't know if I get a couple more remote code executions that it'll get me up there.
And so next time we speak, you reckon you'll be there?
I hope so. Definitely. I guess that's part of it. Once you get to level 5, there's not really any other levels at this time. So that's sort of like the top area. However, the money is really a good motivator, especially when it's like extra spending money on top of my day job. That actually allowed me last year to save up and buy a Nissan Skyline GTR. So I was really excited about that.
Wow, as a car lover, you must have been very happy with that.
For sure.
And I'm guessing you take it out all the time. Weekends are what you look forward to.
Whenever it's not snowing or
Oh
whenever
yeah, of
there's no
course.
road, like Michigan. But yeah, unfortunately right now it is apart, and hopefully by the springtime I'll have it back together and back out on the road.
Adam, outside of your day job and your time hacking on the platform, what else do you like to do in your social life, in your personal life?
So again, I am a car enthusiast, so I enjoy driving and working on my cars. My dad was a mechanic, so growing up, we've always had a lot of cars, in our household. Not all of them always been running, but um, I've got I've got 3 fun toys right now. So the recent R32 Nissan Skyline GTR that I just got, and then I've got a Mark IV 2005 Volkswagen Jetta that I've got, which is got a stage 2 tune on it, very, very fun. And then I've got actually a 1980 MGB LE, and that has an engine swap out of a Nissan Silvia. So now this thing that originally stock, they had 75 to 90 horsepower, and this thing is now pushing like 245 at the wheels, so probably like closer to 300 at the engine. And this thing is just a rocket ship. Doesn't weigh very well, but
and did you modify that yourself?
We've done a couple of upgrades, my dad and I. Other than that, the previous owner did a lot of the modifications himself, so we've just sort of improved upon that. Because of course, like that was sort of the his test car, and he didn't necessarily have like a good way to do some of the engine swap stuff. So we've sort of reinforced the like lower cross members to make sure that the car doesn't sort of I guess sway at all, or sort of sag based on the extra torquiness of it. And then we've done some upgrades to like the turbo and everything. But otherwise, on the weekend, my job that sort of paid my entire way through college, because I graduated debt-free, was working at a shooting range. And so I was a firearms instructor and range safety officer. And I still do that now, one Saturday, or, once every other Saturday, a month, for just a fun job. It doesn't really pay nearly as much as I get for working at my day job or doing bug bounties, but it gives me a huge discount on, firearms and ammo, and it's definitely a fun hobby of mine.
It's a good way to switch off as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then, I play guitar. I like outdoorsy things like camping. Like I was an Eagle Scout, so growing up, I had a lot of opportunities to do like sort of the hiking, camping, outdoor adventure type of stuff.
Wow, that sounds really fun. And you mentioned that your dad was a mechanic, and he's maybe helped you with some of your car hobbies. Have you taught him anything about hacking?
Yeah, so there's my dad's also he sort of got me into computers. When I want to say 3, I had my first Windows 3.1 computer, and when I was 6, I was already playing with like programming and Basic using QBasic, and so he had sort of a background in computers like from when he was younger because his brother, my Uncle Terry, had gotten him sort of into computers as well, not quite nearly to a technical state that I got to, but he was able to keep up with a lot of the stuff. And over time, I've explained certain types of attacks to him, and he's understood those. And he sometimes will offer like, "Have you tried doing something like this?" Or just at a high level for me to sort of work through in my head. Oh, have I tried doing certain things that he's heard me talk about from past attacks? So
Allows you to sort of zoom out a bit.
yeah, exactly.
And so when will we be seeing him on the platform? When's he going to become a SRT member?
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're quite nearly that technical.
Sure. And so for anyone who's looking at starting a career in hacking for Synack, what advice would you give to them in terms of how to get started?
So as far as trying to get started with Synack, I would say working on learning the OWASP top 10 for vulnerabilities. And then, there's certain sites like hacksplaining.com that gives a great, online tutorial that walks you through different types of attacks. It's a free thing. You can create an account and it just sort of teaches you things as you go along. And then the people who made Burp Suite, Portswigger, they have their own Portswigger Academy. That is a great online resource for walking through a bunch of examples of hands-on actionable attacks. And those I found that they focus on are more geared towards bug bounty rather than just web application security in general. I know that as time progresses, companies are looking more and more for more of the medium to high and critical vulnerabilities and less so the low results, just because a lot of times companies can accept the risk for the low, and the impact that the mediums and highs and criticals can bring is crucial for security wise, increasing their security posture.
And I think also with that, so the business impact of some of the vulnerabilities, the stuff that's going to get them in the newspaper, they want to be kept safe from that.
Exactly. Nobody wants to be that article.
So why do you think it is that some CISOs and InfoSec teams are nervous or apprehensive about letting Synack bring in people into their environment, specifically ethical hackers?
So I guess the connotation of the word hacker sometimes can give off sort of a negative vibe because in the movies and Hollywood has portrayed them as, the hoodie with the mask on and, the glove typing at a keyboard, and there's, a dark, dimly lit room. But, I guess as time progresses, a lot more of a professional connotation is being depicted. And these days, a lot of times, many of the hackers out there are very, good, extroverted, individuals who are good at taking technical things at like a very, very low level and bringing it up to a high level for CISOs to understand. And they make great consultants these days.
So would you say that it is definitely important for CISOs to consider using resources like Synack, where you have the advantage of using both technology and the human element of testing?
I definitely agree. I guess based on the crowdsourced pen testing model that Synack uses, I found that when you have a lot of eyes looking at a target versus one set of eyes looking at a target, you've got a lot of different minds. Some are thinking together, but a lot of people are very, very creative and they'll find different ways to get into something that someone else might not have thought of. And also with the model of getting paid out based on the vulnerability, not just on necessarily just checking the boxes for the pen test, it sort of incentivizes researchers to go deeper and dive deeper and really look to see if it's possible to get these vulnerabilities triggered and exploited versus a standard pen test for a job is sort of going through the check boxes. We check for this, yep. We check for that, yep. Okay, couldn't do that. All right, move on. So sometimes while one researcher might not necessarily be as skilled as another one, if they both find the same thing, the more skilled researcher oftentimes can find the actual like vulnerability and exploit it. And it's a nice thing to be able to learn from that and say, oh, I guess that was exploitable after all, and do a little more research and dive in deeper to figure out how next time that can be targeted for someone else.
Sure, and I think the learning process, both on your end and the way you guys can educate yourselves in the community, and how your work can educate security teams from the client side of it, is also it's quite similar, right?
Exactly.
And so, sorry, yeah, go.
Oh, I was just gonna add to that as engagements move forward, a lot of times, not one specific client is going to be the same as far as like how their network is versus how another client's network is. So it's really useful for using past experiences towards another client.
I think also one of the benefits is, you see that attack surface being hardened over time, and you build that trust with Synack and with our community, with the SRTs over time. You become more comfortable with the model, and you become more aware of how valuable a crowdsourced approach is to security testing.
Definitely.
Sure. And so just quickly on, for those SRT members who are already on the platform and looking to move up the levels like you have, what advice would you give them on how to do that?
I would say really focus on the vulnerabilities that you're comfortable with. A lot of times, people get into these, I guess, areas where they're like, it's so overwhelming because there's so many different things to try, and I don't know what to try. A lot of times, even working with some of the more simple vulnerabilities like insecure direct object references, let's say the number is 12345 and change it to 12346, and it messes up the web application, or gives you access to something that you shouldn't. That that right there is a very simplistic vulnerability, but it can have a great impact, and it can definitely pay out a lot. So sometimes focusing on some of the simpler attacks instead of focusing on some of the more complex attacks starting out can really yield a bunch of success. And a lot of times that success helps as sort of a motivator and gives you a lot of momentum to try to go further and keep going.
Yeah, it completely makes sense with the way that success is measured as well. You've also recently awarded the Guardians of Trust Award from us. Is that something you would like to tell us a little bit about? I know that quite a few people would be interested to hear about that.
Yeah, so I'm very, very happy that I was nominated and awarded for that. So I guess just from trying to help out others in the community, and just being overall positive person, not necessarily being super negative when I'm upset about something, and just going through the proper channels to like especially emailing support when there's something with the platform that's gone up, because nobody's perfect, and that's understandable, but just being an all-around good role model, I think, is really one of the things that helped get me nominated and awarded for that.
Sure, and you are definitely very well deserved for that. Congratulations on winning that award. Is there anything else you would like to add before we end?
I guess the only thing I can really say is keep going. Sometimes there are sort of droughts where you'll have dry spells and not really find any vulnerabilities for a while. But when that happens, just focus on training up your skills and then go after it with a fresh set of eyes. Take breaks and don't burn yourself out.
It's great advice, and I'm sure people will take note of that. Adam, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been super interesting and fun to chat with you again.
Thank you.
I'm hoping now that the listeners can build a better picture of how a day in your life looks when you're working for Synack, and also what you're doing outside of it. It's interesting as well to see, our SRT all have a human aspect, just like everyone else. It's not like everyone's in the Matrix, like you said. And hopefully the stereotype and negative connotations of the word hacker can be changed to a more trusted approach. Adam, thanks for joining. And listeners, we will catch you in the next one.